Hey, what's going on, guys? This is the deck that I ran at the Rhode Island State Qualifier, preliminary, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's one of those events that you can get a nationals invite at. Instead of running the obvious blue, yellow, aggro, blue, red, aggro, and any blue leader, I want to try something different. To me, this deck and cell chain in general is always present in the meta. Even if you don't see it at your locals, it should always be in your mind when you deck build and create sideboard and so forth. Previously, I made a green-red version of this deck, but with the newest set and the ultimate box, I decided to just try mono green with some overwhelm, and it works great so far. And I do think that this can compete with the meta decks, especially with the sideboard. And so I use the Android's leader, and the 1-drops I use Gohan because it's probably one of the best cards to awaken with. I don't like Tien because of the cost. I know Gohan is slow, but in this kind of meta, people usually attack you like crazy to kill you quickly, and so Gohan is sometimes not necessary. If your opponent stalls you, then you have to play around that and hopefully get the 6th life to awaken first and just try to peck them away. But otherwise, Gohan was enough. Dr. Giro, I run this one instead of the 2-drop because of the 1 cost, and in this kind of meta, the lower cost, the better, because tapping 2 on turn 2 or turn 3 could mean doom for you. I take the risk with the 1-drop. It usually hits, and it shuffles my deck, so it's really good. Free blockers are really good in this meta and in general. The Krillin can only be played when you awaken, because then you become Android 18. And so he is a great free blocker. Once Hirudegarn, for example, attacks me and kills me down to like 5 life, 4 life, 6 life, I can awaken early and then drop this blocker, and it helps me stall the game so I can play my other cards. Super combos, I know a lot of people run the Trunks and this or one or the other. I think this is one of the best super combos in the game. It's absolutely absurd with this right here. Once you cell chain and you have this in hand and you're at 4 life or less, you put extreme pressure on your opponent and you force them to do things that they normally wouldn't do. I don't care much about drawing because I do have Fu, and I just draw naturally off the power, and this deck is very grindy, so I'm used to not drawing as much, and that's fine. I'd rather put them at a disadvantage than put myself in an advantage by drawing 5Ks and random stuff. To me, this works great, and that's why I run 4 instead of any type of mix and match with Trunks. Cell chain, I know there are alternatives. You can run the other 5-drop, the new Ultimate Box 5-drop, but I just wanted to keep it straight and simple, straight to the point. Here it is. Extra cards, I wanted to keep that very low. I don't want to run a lot of clunk, so I run all negates. Speedy Surprise Attack kills threats off the board. It certainly puts a roadblock in front of the yellow decks that try to do Goten and Bardock, because once they attack with the Goten, you can kill the Goten off the board. If your opponent is using a Vegito Yajirobe stall type deck and they have to attack with Vegito to lock you out of attacking them, you can negate with this and discard a card to kill their Yajirobe on the board or kill their Gohan or whatever 3-drop they have or less. Full Power Energy, same thing. It's just a scare tactic against opponents. If my opponent plays Bardock, the 1-drop, the Progenitor, and they attack, you can kill it off the board. You can kill a couple things here and there. I don't run 4 of these because it's a lot of people play around it. They assume that you have this in your hand, so they won't attack with Bardock per se, but they have to attack with their higher draws like Goten and so forth, because otherwise they put no pressure on you and you can cell chain them. So that's why I run 4 and 2 instead of the other way around. And I did run more, but I cut it down because I don't want to draw these when I'm all tapped out. I want to draw mostly 5Ks and stuff like that. For the Android lineup, I use these 17s and this 18. And the ratio is actually good enough to me. Like, I never really ran into a position where I could not cell chain them. Against the rush decks, the aggro decks that hurt you a lot, they usually make you draw a lot of cards because you're taking life. And then you awaken, you draw, and then you keep drawing from that, and my card effects that filter and stuff. And I usually hit both of these plus cell, and I can then cell chain them. I run this 18 because, pretty much only because she has critical, and in this meta, after you cell chain them, critical hurts a lot because they expect to get those cards in hand and they don't. And for 17s, I think this is one of the best cards in the game. The blocker 17 that readies itself, that's just absurd as a 20k, and it's really annoying if your opponent can't jump over it. For example, like after you cell chain them, they only have so many cards in hand, they can't out combo this card because then they burn their resources too much and then they get hurt on the kickback to me. This is the new 17 that came out in the Ultimate Box. Kills board threats, really good. Barrier blocker, huge. When you're at 4 life or less, you're 25k. And speaking of which, I run one Analyza because if the game does get that far, dropping that after you cell chain is pretty much game over because your opponent can no longer combo to apply pressure to you, because if you cell chain them, they have so little cards in hand, and this just seals the deal for you. Plus, he has barrier, and you can swing with him, and it hurts a lot. For Overwhelm, I run this package. Fu. I mainboard Fu because the 10k pump count was fine. Like, I did the math, and one costing 10ks, I do have a lot, and this was enough. Like, this, I don't want to go any further. I didn't want to have like 20 one cost 10k combo cards. But this is in the deck for a mirror match, for the games that stall to the late turns. Like, the game, again, if the game stalls really late and you don't kill your opponent, this usually seals the deal. Because by that time, you usually have a big enough discard pile where you can play him. And also, if your opponent somehow kills this cell, that's like several cards in the discard pile already that fuels this. And I run this Toa because she's sexy, pretty much. I like it. I understand that you can run Mira that does this almost the same thing, and you can use this Android 20 to get it because that has Android. This does not have Android characteristic, but it does pump your leader, and it has the same kind of cost, and so why not? It did help a lot. Obviously, if you cell chain and then follow up with this card, that pretty much is game over for your opponent because you cell chain, you have this massive body on the board, you then play this, they're down to 2 cards in hand, and you pump your leader. So you have this attack, you have your leader, who's now like a 20k, and then you have the cell to finish the game. And so that's the deck. Again, very straightforward, but it's still good. I think it's not tier 2, maybe tier 1. It could possibly be tier 1. It hurts the SS3 decks a lot because they try to control the game, but without a hand, they get controlled. And I'll just quickly talk about my sideboard. This is subject to change, obviously. If you have any other suggestions, let me know. I use 3 Cronoa, obviously, because people still, yes, they still use Sugesh. You have to have this just in case. Mass Saiyan against the Veggies deck, the Veggies Rush deck, to clear their board. Minus Killy Zone. This is, I don't know if I'd ever side this, but for any deck that still runs Bloodlust, you can play this, and then they cannot Bloodlust your cell, so you can cell chain them, even though it's kind of worthless because I run enough 17s to bait out their Bloodlust, so it's whatever. I run 2 Analyza in the sideboard as well. And again, this won me a lot of games in the Rhode Island Qualifier because against SS3, I would side in 2 more, so I'd have 3 in the main board. So when the game stalls to the late turns, I would have, you know, drop 2 or 3 of these on the board. It is definitely game over because your opponent can no longer combo at all. Another Fu for mirror match, and I did play mirror matches, so having 3 in the main board does help against cell chain. 2 Haru against green leaders, yellow leaders. Of course, this should be in every sideboard because it's really good. Another full power energy in case I faced a really aggro deck. This sort of helped, but it's not really necessary. And then 2 Jocos to bounce back kill threats. Like if my opponent combos their entire hand, I can then combo like a 10k back and hopefully survive that turn. It's a good card. And so that's the deck. Let me know what you think, and have a good one.